All right.
Here we are. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Jaguar Report podcast live after some extreme difficulties here and there with the streaming process. It only took us 3 episodes to figure it out, as long as you don't count the couple dozen or so beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, huge things happening this weekend, John. Of course, the biggest of which is that we're figuring out how to do video stream for our podcast.
We're hitting our stride at the same time as the Jaguars.
Okay, that's good. I like that.
I gotta say, you were the Doug Peterson of this operation.
Oh, that's nice, John. Is that just because you have a man crush on Trevor?
I was the Bernie Parmalee.
As the guy that talked about his last podcast.
Yeah, I was the Bernie Parmalee.
Okay.
I deserve more credit than people think, but Urban didn't. No, okay, all right. Well, on that note, welcome to the Jaguar Report podcast. We're your host, John Shipley, Gus Logue. Gus, how you doing, my friend?
My heart is still beating from 4 days ago. That's how I'm feeling. Wow. I mean, where do we even begin? Jags just pulled off the third biggest comeback in playoff history, down 27-0. It was the first playoff game that a team with a 0-5 turnover margin won the game. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
All right.
And their fifth turnover was the funniest of the game.
The Chris Claybrooks one?
Dude, just hitting him directly in the head. That was one of the funniest turnovers I've ever seen in a football game. In the moment, it was more somber than anything. But, yeah, I mean, like you said, it's like one of those games where, you know, the Titans game had a really dramatic finish. You know, obviously super improbable scoop and score for a touchdown with a couple minutes left. But this one was even crazier. I mean, this was – I mean, thinking of, like, the wildest Jaguars games from start to finish I've covered, I feel like the top 5 have all been this year. And that one's probably up there, like number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of it as like a number 1 that it isn't. Like, number 1 game that I've been to live, number 1 Jags game that I've seen in general, number 1 Trevor game that I've seen as a pro, number 1 Doug game as a coach for the Jags, number one. One win, 1 playoff win.
Did you ever think at any point that the game was like over, like they were SOL?
Oh yeah, I think I talked out of leaving at halftime, honestly. Thank goodness my friends talked some sense into me. But one of my buddies was like, I might leave at halftime, and then just like the thought of my bed just like popped into my head. So I was like, okay. And then someone else said, but Gus, it's the Chargers. And I said, okay, I'm all the way back in. I'm staying. That was all that I needed.
Yeah.
The dark cloud, that's the Chargers.
God, man. See, I wouldn't blame anybody for leaving at halftime of that specific game, but leaving at halftime of that game, like, good Lord.
You know what it is that at the stadium they were playing, I couldn't tell you what song it was, but it was like this band was playing. Do you know who was playing or what the song was?
I can't really hear the music in the press box, honestly.
Well, it was like a 2010s pop song that was like a popular radio hit.
It's your generation.
Trying to get the crowd riled up. And like everyone was just like sitting there in silence during halftime. But everyone stayed. And so
you're a child.
Came back.
You're a child of 2010 pop. Don't give me that.
And it felt like Maroon 5, but I don't think it was actually Maroon 5.
I know.
They went to a Jags super wild card game.
You're not talking about Yellow Card, are you?
Oh, that sounds familiar. Maybe that is who it was.
The Ocean Avenue song?
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Was that it? The Ocean Avenue song? Even I know that
I don't
song.
know.
Yeah, okay. Anyway.
A good thing I did ask you.
Yeah,
Yeah, so everyone was like just sitting there in silence, pissed at halftime, but no one left. I mean, there was so many different plays throughout the game, not even just the interceptions, but like Trevor had several misses on just like shallow crossing routes. And there was like, and then just like whatever botched missed tackles and opposing third downs happened. It was just like another stab into the heart another twist of the knife. But yeah, the fans were really resilient. I guess the team was as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was weird. Like, I felt obviously time had a big reason to do with it. 3 minutes of the game compared to over a half. But I felt more at times during the Titans game that they were going to lose than I felt during this game. Like, even when they were down 27-0, it was a mix of who the Jaguars have been this year and that the Chargers, they just have something in their DNA, dude. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is, man. It doesn't matter who the coach is. The Chargers are going to Charger.
Chargers going to Charger. Was there a moment specifically in the game for you where you thought, oh, they're definitely losing this, or oh, they're definitely winning this?
When the ball hit Clay Brooks in the head is probably the moment I was closest to. Oh, they're going to lose this. A turnover like that happens, and you're normally just not winning that game. But honestly, not really, because I just felt like I felt coming into the game that the Jaguars matched up well with the Chargers. That's why the first half confused me so much. Like, the Jaguars, receivers are they're skill players in general. Like, obviously the refs were letting them play a little handsy, a little physical, but the Chargers were kind of gloving them up, and I didn't expect that because you didn't see that happen in week 3. So I hate to give Brandon Staley any credit for mooching off Vic Fangio and Aaron Donald, but Brandon Staley had a pretty good game plan in the first half.
Yeah, did you see his comments today from the presser?
Yeah, it sounds like me after I lose a Mountain game.
Someone asked him today, did you feel like you were outcoached by Doug Peterson? And he responded, I didn't feel that way in the first half, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. But, I mean, he was kind of true. The Jags did run into a lot of problems. I mean, we can go interception by interception, but I felt like they were kind of targeting Asante Samuel the whole game, honestly, and he had a great first half and a terrible second half.
Yeah, no, it in coverage, especially in the second half. And I know a lot of people think that run was aimed at him at the end. It wasn't. It felt like Travis Etienne just stuck at the edge and was like, holy hell, I'm going to bounce this outside as much as I can. It just kind of took him to the corner. But Samuel was somebody who he struggled in their first matchup, and I mean, each of his interceptions was kind of fluky, honestly. I mean, there was that one where Trevor obviously got fooled. The one where they were backed up in their own end zone. They were running mesh, and he tried to get to Ingram on the underneath route, and Samuel intercepted him. It looked like they had man on one side of the field, which led Trevor to think, okay, Evans going to be wide open, and they had zone on the other side. And he just completely didn't see it at all. I know some people – JT Sullivan, I think, pointed out that Ingram probably could have done a better job of not running directly into a defender, which is probably a fair point in hindsight. I don't know how he missed him looking directly at him, but that I think was probably his worst throw of the game. I mean, where do you stand on his interceptions? Because the RPO throw, I struggle to blame him on anything because if that throw wasn't deflected, it's probably a 15-yard gain on the second play of the game. The one to Zay, probably should have been PI, but if the refs aren't going to call it, if they're not going to call PI, then, Zay kind of got bodied by Samuel at the top of the catch point. And then the other one to Evan Ingram, I mean, that was a mix of a bad throw and them just, again, not having anybody open at all. So, I mean, how did you kind of see the interceptions?
Right. The RPO I thought wasn't on him at all because, as you said, there was plenty of space in front of him. You read it well. The linebacker went to commit to the run, and so just got tipped and then got tipped again. On their second offensive play, it was just kind of, well, what are you going to do situation. And then the Ingram one where he collided with Samuel in the mesh, I would also say was Trevor, where it was definitely an assumption throw, where he just saw a man on the one side and was like, okay, Ingram's going to be here on the crosser. I'm going to fire it to him because I got pressure coming. And then Samuel just kind of crept up behind him a little bit. I mean, there was one that was kind of a scheme interception, I'd say. Samuel's the one that Samuel kind of bodied Zay on was definitely Zay. We'll get that out of the way because Trevor was kind of throwing it to where he was going to be.
I mean,
Zay just wasn't able to complete the route.
That was a good call by the Chargers too. I mean, Staley was able to scheme up like a free runner at Trevor, so like the timing, I felt like it was kind of rushing. Like that, I felt like was a kind of a W by Samuel and Staley.
Yeah, I mean, Samuel was just literally sitting where Zay was going to go. So like, it's Zay's fault for like if we're going to assign blame, but it was definitely good defense by Samuel, even if he got like a little shovey. And then like the fourth one was like scheme. I think it was just like a late rotation, and Trevor was trying to force a throw. It was the fourth down one. It was the second one that Samuel just kind of like got in front on the crosser. So yeah, Staley kind of sort of had the hand in the first half. So it was all that plus the Clay Brooks fumble, the doink. And that was pretty much the first half up until Trevor's first touchdown, which was the Marvin throw.
No, it was first touchdown was the Ingram.
Oh, you're right. On the stick nod.
I mean, I thought the defense, honestly, like, obviously you give up 27 points in the first half, but two of those touchdowns were super short fields. And another one, I think on the Clay Brooks play, I want to say they held them to a field goal there. So, I mean, I honestly thought the defense played better than, like the scoreboard. Like, they got screwed, 5 times with turnovers.
Yeah. I mean, the Chargers won the turnover battle 5-0, but the Jaguars definitely won the red zone battle. And that was kind of the difference in the game on both sides of the ball. I mean, Trevor had several deep to intermediate throws instead of them flaking out in the red zone. And the defense, as you were saying, coming up with big stops.
I mean, Mike Williams, if Mike Williams was in that game, I'm not sure, honestly, the Jaguars win because not only did, they not have any semblance of a deep passing game, I think Herbert had more passes land out of bounds than he had completed, 15 yards downfield or something like that. His passing chart, it was despicable for a dude to go 70 yards on a rope. And I thought overall, no Mike Williams, but they wouldn't be able to stretch the field, which, you and I talked about before the game. But I also thought in the red zone, it felt like they were spamming all of their plays like at Keenan Allen. And he's just not that Keenan Allen anymore who, I think he had a decent game. I want to say he had 6 catches for 60-something yards. But I never at any point in the game was like, dang, Keenan Allen's killing them.
Yeah, neither was I. I mean, there was a couple of third down conversions that were pretty big, but it wasn't really anything that they couldn't come back from. I mean, I was in disagreement with you before the game. I thought if Keenan had been ruled out, it would have made a bigger impact on the Chargers offense than Mike Williams. And you said the opposite. And yeah, I think you were right. They wipe the dirt off a little bit. But,
Keenan, 13 targets, 6 catches for 61 yards.
13 targets. I didn't realize it was that many.
Yeah.
I mean, one other thing besides, obviously their run defense throughout the game was outstanding. And then the red zone defense. And then, the bootleg concepts, I thought the Jaguars shut down. After their offense had kind of had some troubles with it, they were able to shut down an opposing one.
I mean, Josh Allen, I thought, played another really good game. I mean, he obviously had the 1 sack, but I thought there were several times where he was that close to getting to Herbert. And I don't know what you attribute his run to, at all over the last couple games. I think this is probably the best, the last 3 games is the best stretch he's probably ever played because I want to say he had 9 pressures against Houston in the season finale. And then he obviously had an amazing game against the Titans and then last week. So, the defense I thought in the first half stepped up. And then, like you said, that touchdown to Ingram at the end of the first half, they don't win without that because you had to get some kind of points, in the first half. And I thought it was one of Lawrence's better throws.
Yeah, I mean, between 2 defenders, I don't really remember if it was the first place he looked or if he looked somewhere else first, but it was definitely a nice little redemption score.
What percentage of his blue chip S tier throws go to Ingram? It feels like because he had another to Ingram after his first interception that was super,
the corner.
That was super. It feels like so many of his big throws are to Ingram or Kirk.
I'll
Again,
say Kirk.
they only throw it to 4 guys, so I know it's probably limited pool there.
The thing is, like Engram will like have big catches down the seam every once in a while, and like he had the stick not touchdown. But I feel like he does so much damage on like screens and shallow crosses, honestly, which he's really good at. But like, so that's why I feel like the S tier throws are more so to Kirk and like Zay Jones inconsistently.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. So going into halftime, it was just like at least we're not like being shut out. Like 3 scores, okay. Like there was a lot of good tweets after the game. My favorite one was probably Travis Etienne's though, because he was like, it felt like we were playing in a Madden game, and so it was, like that's what it was. It was like, okay, you're just doing the math in your head. 3 scores, like that's like you can do that in not too much time.
It felt like as soon as they got that first touchdown out of the half too, that they were obviously still down like I think 13 points. I want to say it was the Marvin touchdown. Yeah, that where Samuel, you mentioned earlier, Marvin just completely put Samuel in a blender on his route. It was one of the best routes I think we've seen Marvin run as a Jaguar. And it was against a guy who, had had 3 picks up to that point. And once they scored that touchdown, I feel like you could feel every Charger fan in the world kind of like tighten up and just that dread starting to hit them, dude. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how you like that. That is the worst form of charging I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, by far. I mean, for like all the accolades we were giving the Jags earlier, like it's got to be like the lowest of low for that franchise.
I mean, like the Jags season had lost right there. Like, yeah, it would have stung a little bit, but they would have said, "Hey, we did better than anybody thought we could. We're in. We won the AFC South, etc." The Chargers had such high aspiration, and then just your season snatched away by the Jaguars. That's a tough one, man. I mean, because give me your take. Do you think who do you think was the better quarterback during the game? Because you have to weigh obviously Lawrence's interceptions with his touchdowns, but was Herbert decidedly better than him?
No. I mean, like, I don't know how to, like, chalk that up to, like, the play calling versus the quarterback because, as we already said,
Vince Lombardi's grandson.
Yeah, it's pretty limited. And then plus the Mike Williams injury and, like, no running game. So, like, I don't know. We've talked about how Trevor's gotten really no help in the past. I feel like that was kind of the same case with Herbert this year. He didn't really make any, like, insane throws. There was a sidearm, around Josh Allen in the first or second quarter.
That was crazy.
And then, like, was that it? He missed the Keenan on, like, a touchdown later in the game. And so I don't think it was, like, a bad Herbert game, and I don't think he deserves, like, blame for the loss. But I also don't think he outplayed Trevor.
Yeah, no, I thought that's wild to say, like, even with, 4 interceptions, Trevor was still the better quarterback. And, hey, I mean, I know, Herbert has, the ribs, big card he can play for the first matchup, and then Mike Williams didn't play this time. But does Trevor Lawrence own Justin Herbert? It was like somebody said before the game, they're like, this settles the Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence debate once for all. And I'm like, who's ever debated that? I don't think I've ever seen that.
Once for all.
Yeah, but now that it started, man, I mean, if the Jaguars win Saturday, Trevor Lawrence will be 3-1 in his career against Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert.
Man, the Jags beat the Bills 2 years ago, right before Lawrence. Sadly,
no, they beat him last year with Lawrence. Yeah, sorry, he's beat Josh Allen too.
Oh, he did lose to Burrow last year, though.
Yeah, he did.
That's kind of like the top 4 or 5.
He also lost to Zach Wilson last year. So what are you gonna do?
What are you gonna
do? Before we advance, I want to point out that it is so refreshing to not have to cover like any kind of coaching search, like at all.
Yes, I was thinking like this time last year was like the longest stretch of like just like being a Jaguars fan or reporter ever. I feel like.
Oh yeah. No,
it's just waiting so long for a decision, and then like just so many toss-ups of so many names.
I'm going into hibernation after the playoffs.
It was exhausting.
You won't see me for a month once the season's over. No,
Draft season is calling.
I have no interest right now. I'm gonna see what kind of Frankenstein draft class they can put together, and we're gonna ride with it from there. But the example, I guess, that from this year's coaching cycle that I've been watching from afar, because it's a weird year where only a couple of teams need a head coach, but the Jets offensive coordinator search, I don't know if it's funnier them interviewing Nate Hackett or them letting LaFleur go because he had what they called abundance of opportunities through their multiple media channels, and he's yet to have an interview in literally anywhere.
Okay, so this just means that they got a sniff that Aaron Rodgers is interested in New York, and then they were like, all right, Hackett is coming here tomorrow. That's the only explanation, right? Because I laughed out loud when I saw the Hackett news that he got an interview. And I was like, is this just Rodgers, trying to get Rodgers again?
Yeah.
When has that ever happened before in, sports history?
No.
If it was an NBA, recruiting thing.
Saleh, that entire, offensive coordinator list. And Washington's the same way. I saw somebody tweet out, a list of the guys they're interviewing, and it's Ron Rivera knows 3 people in the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, that was another bad one. I like Scott. I like Scott Turner.
Yeah, I mean, hey, their quarterbacks are terrible, but hey, the Jaguars, they're not going to be looking for another coordinator until Press Taylor is the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams following Sean McVay's retirement.
Shipley rumors. Okay.
No.
You think he's actually going to be a head coach in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll make a little bet with you on that one. If Press Taylor is a head coach within the next 5 years, the next episode we do after he gets hired, you have to wear a whiteboard, sign with any message I want written on it.
Okay, deal.
Deal. Carry on.
Buy yourself a little bit of time to think of something. I like it.
Oh, no, I'll think of something.
No, I know you will.
I got my gears.
Let's go to the second Lawrence touchdown in the third quarter, which was the Zay Jones touchdown.
Yeah, it was. It looked like he audibled on that one, to me. Did it look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks like it was an audible, and then I didn't know whether to give credit to Peterson or Trevor, but then I watched sounds of the game last night, and multiple people were coming up to Trevor and saying great check, bro, great job, not just the great throw, which is gorgeous. So it was one of those ones if you watch in slow motion and the laces are poo 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 poo.
I love that. That was my new favorite Gus moment. I'm gonna what shotgun said. I'm gonna seal that up and keep it with me.
Keep it with you,
dude. No, it really was watching it. You see Zay break open late and him wind back to throw it, and I don't know if it was the PTSD in me, but for a split second, I was like, what if he doesn't catch that?
I was a little more worried about the throw, honestly, because I was at the point of the game where I was kind of guessing play calls with my friends to try to make it more entertaining. So I was not for every single one, but I saw that the safety was over on the right side, and I was like, this is a Zay touchdown right here. And then so basically I'm Trevor Lawrence / Press Taylor, right?
Yeah, no,
or Doug Peterson beginning of the show.
More or less. I mean, from what did you feel like Doug was doing anything differently in the second half, compared to the
first? He ran a ton of mesh in both halves, even after the interception.
Exactly.
And then it was he has his outside staple concepts of smash and spot. That's in every other playbook that he spams those, and then curls is another one that he is obsessed with. So I was thinking earlier, we kind of talked about the silly special last week and how we thought he might have something in his bag for this game, and he did with the T formation play that we'll talk about later. But before that, I'd say it was maybe another bland play or another bland game for him.
A lot of trees have died for that T formation play. I'll say that. It's Wednesday, and we're still talking about it. Damn it!
It was the game winner
Yeah,
from a
yeah,
play
yeah.
made a century ago.
It was a
It
great.
was.
I thought it was the best play in Jaguars history.
Or why wouldn't we still be talking about it? You're
They have
sick
a
of this
game.
play, John?
They have a game in 3 days.
I mean, if we were podcasting Friday, I would still mention it. We're talking about the game.
Fair enough.
So, all
I'm
right, the Zay
projecting.
touchdown was cool. It was a nice play, like design. Even if Trevor's the one that threw it and checked into it, Peterson's clearly the one that like game planned it.
It felt like it like took all of like the wind out of like the Chargers. Like if there was any one play that like broke their back, it felt like it was that one.
Right. Quick scheme breakdown, I guess. The reason it was so wide open is because the Jags had trips, and the Chargers played a cover 3 coverage called tricks, and so Derwin James basically like was supposed to sit on any crossing routes coming over from the chip side to simplify it. And so Christian Kirk was like the first guy on the inside on the trips formation, and he just ran right at Derwin and then sat down on like a kind of like a over the middle comeback route, and then Zay just kind of like took off behind him, and the middle safety just wasn't anywhere close to him.
So
Sound about right?
What did like Trevor read that made him like you think like change that? Is it just like where safety was aligned?
Yeah, I think it was the like alignment of the safeties, like based on like the trips formation. I mean, like I just like saw that there was like if I could see it from the stands, I don't know. I'm not trying to pat myself in the back too much because like there was plenty of plays that like I was like, Zay touchdown, and then it was a sack. But like I don't know. If I could see that the safeties were all the way over there, then I'm sure he did too.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
I'm sure plenty of other people in the stadium saw the same thing, and were
Yeah.
like, even if it wasn't Zay, like, please hit a crossing route over to the other side.
Yeah,
And
no,
so the
fair.
Chargers thought the same thing, so they were kind of sort of in defense for it.
Yeah,
It was one of those like I know what you know, what I know what you know plays.
I feel like his condensed formations help out with that too. Like, I think like Next Gen Stats posted, like they were like 29th or something like that, and like average like width of like the offense. Like they were super spread out last year. Like they were like a fire spread offense, and now they're like top 10 or something. And like just in terms of like how compact like they are, and I feel like that does a good job of helping guys get open too. Like Doug is, he's a maestro out there.
Mm-hmm. And like that's a good point because like from like condensed formations, the Marvin touchdown was also like an out. The Kirk touchdown, which we'll get to later, was also an out. And so I guess that was like a tweak because that's the thing with Doug is like he runs his staples and he runs his plays. So like I guess it shouldn't be shocking to see mesh pop up throughout the game. Like a tweak in formation. I guess we just kind of solved it out by talking about it.
It was literally me playing Madden, dude. Like, there's no play I love playing in Madden more than Mesh, especially when you're against the
yeah.
It's like, I'm terrified to throw it over the middle, like when they're using a linebacker, so I just dump it underneath. And it felt like, overall a good game plan. And another thing is, I noticed they used a lot more tempo in the second half, which – you can do more tempo when you're not throwing the ball to the other team. But it feels like Trevor is just better when the game's going faster because he – like I'm not sure like the best like comparisons like for him like basketball wise. I want to say he's like almost like a Giannis type where he's like this like giant obvious physical freak, but he can still do like the technical stuff and be like kind of the point guard of the entire offense and like kind of just distribute things like instantly and immediately. And I feel like just when he's in a hurry up, and I know we used to say this about Blake Bortles, and I feel like people have probably everywhere says it about every quarterback, but just when he goes tempo, it feels like he's a different dude.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I forgot. That was definitely another second half adjustment. Even if it was more mesh, they definitely picked it up, and that definitely like had an influence on the Chargers defense. So after the Zay touchdown was the Marvin touchdown. Is that correct?
Yeah, then it was the Kirk touchdown.
Or the Marvin touchdown was actually before the Zay touchdown. I just put it on Pro Football Reference. I could have let it slide, but
sure.
So it was Marvin on the out, great route, and then it was Zay on like the great play call and check, and then it was Christian Kirk, which like he kind of like tore it up in the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
He had
no,
a bunch of big plays.
that was like obviously a great throw, but that was an incredible catch. That like touchdown catch on the corner. That was just in that play and the catch he made down the right sideline on the last drive of the game, where it was only like a 10 or 11, 12-yard gain, but it was like super contested and he was able to barely get his feet in bounds. He was worth every penny because I mean that every offense needs is the guy who can make the tough catches in the high leverage situations. And it doesn't matter if he's not the biggest guy out there. I mean, he was that guy on Saturday.
Yeah, he was. Like the touchdown pass, it was like so impressive. Like he had a really nice route at the top of the stem, but then also like Trevor's throw was technically like slightly behind him, and so he did a really good job of kind of like boxing the guy out. I think it was Brian Callahan.
Yeah, it was
boxing him out to be able to like go up and make the catch. So
it was Bryce Callahan.
Who's Brian Callahan? Sorry, Brian.
No,
yeah, that was that. 4 touchdowns and 4 drives.
Yeah, and then I mean that obviously brought us to the last drive. I mentioned the Kirk play. There was another Kirk play where Kirk was able to get some yards after the catch. Jesus, yards after the catch over the middle. That's going to be the next stat. That's absolutely terrible. Yards over the catch expected.
Yep,
that's one. That's my new least favorite stat. That over expected. Like CPOE, I get, but I hate rushing yards over expected. I hate it.
I like it just because of who's at the top. It's pretty favorable for ETN.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh yeah, it's a great stat.
You attribute that to him like having like 60-yard runs when it's like 59 yards after contact or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's why success rate comes in. You gotta look at both.
Fair enough.
Numbers guy thing.
Look at you. Look at you.
All right. So one thing we sort of skipped over going over the touchdowns was a bunch of huge decisions by both teams. There was the decision by Doug to go for it for 2, and then he didn't go for it, or that they missed, which was after the Zay touchdown.
Yeah.
They went for it. It was a missed throw to Zay again. But I liked that they went for 2 there. That was pretty aggressive.
I'm normally all for like refs like letting them play, but like that one like should have been a flag. Like once you get like some face mask, you should probably throw that one. But nothing on that one.
Nah. And then obviously with the Joey Bosa penalty later, they were able to go for 2 from a 1-yard line, and Trevor just stretched out doing his best, like Michael Jordan from Space Jam, dunking the ball impression.
Did you see the Joey Bosa interview about refs?
I saw what he said, like written out in words, but I didn't hear like him say it, which I know I should have to go back and do.
Listening to it in the Joey Bosa syntax makes it 10 times funnier. And there's so many things that I missed during the game. Like I saw him slam his helmet on the ground during the game, but like my eyes were scanning so many places that I moved on after that. I didn't see until after the game that Staley gave him the helmet back and he threw it back down.
Yeah. I didn't see that till after the game either, but that was awesome.
And I don't know if he was like mad about like thinking that they were holding him. He obviously wasn't 100%. I mean, Doug Peterson even said that he wasn't like 100%. But maybe he thought Jawan Taylor was false starting, which people complain about, opposing teams' players every week, even though Jawan Taylor has like said like he talks to refs every single game, and they're like, no, you're not false starting. Like he literally just times it that well. Like he knows when the ball's being snapped, so it's not hard to conceive that he's just timing it perfectly, and he's that athletic. It's like the same thing as like a defensive lineman having an explosive get off. And I don't know if that made him mad, because I do know there are instances where opposing players do get pretty pissed about Jawan, thinking that he's false starting, even though he's not. I don't know what it was, but he was unhinged. He was unwell player of the week. Joey Bosa. Unwell player.
I love that, John. That's like our first. That's gonna be our first official segment.
Yeah. No, that was. Oh man, is it resentment over Nick Bosa being clearly better? I mean, I don't.
Ooh. I mean,
Yeah,
I think it's a lot of things. It's got to be that. It's got to be like he's not 100% healthy. It's got to be the Jawan, like not actually, but it looks like it false starts. The fact that they're losing and like letting it come back. The fact that it like maybe if I wasn't getting help from his coaches or players, and it just like all boiled up into two separate helmet flings onto the
does
dirt.
does Jawan Taylor and Walker Little, dude? I asked the Trevor Lawrence owns Justin Herbert. Do Walker Little and Jawan Taylor own Joey Bosa?
I mean, yeah, I think so. And Khalil Mack for that
I
measure.
mean, yeah, Bosa and Mack had 0 pressures against Little. I think Taylor gave up 4 pressures, and I want to say most of those were against Mack.
I thought Mack had like one where he beat Little, but maybe Trevor got rid of it quick enough that it wasn't a pressure.
Penalty, baby.
It was a penalty. Nice.
Doesn't count.
Good stuff.
Doesn't count.
Yeah, the offensive line was like pretty nice.
I mean, it's obviously a question for down the road. Like, I've been asked it every time I've posted like a Walker Little like stat or article or something. Like people asking, okay, what do you do with Walker Little? I have no interest in debating it right now or like breaking it like down because there's still like a season going on. But that's caused quite a conundrum moving forward, hasn't it? And who would have thunk? I mean, who would have thunk that Walker Little? Like if it wasn't for both his injury and then COVID happening right at the same time, he would have been, in my opinion, a top 15 pick.
I mean, I thought for sure first rounder, just based on like reading articles and scouting reports and just anything that was kind of posted before the COVID season. There was like everyone kind of thought he was the next first round tackle for sure.
Yeah.
And like I think like our conversation from last week is pretty relevant in terms of interior pressure versus outside pressure because like Jags were able to hold up against 2 premier pass rushers even if they weren't at their prime or at their best. But like against the Titans, Jeffrey Simmons did a lot of damage, and then next week is going to be Chris Jones, so that'll definitely be one of the bigger storylines.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Walker, just you and I were both fans of how he played last year. I think he's been better this year. I thought in training camp that if he was able to see the field, he would have a better year because he just physically looked different in training camp. Like he looked a lot stronger, and I think that's kind of reflecting, on tape. But I mean that 2021 draft class from bulky, man. I mean, Trevor hit, Etienne hit. Walker hit, Campbell hit, Cisco hit, Luke Farrell. I mean, honestly, I think Luke Farrell is a guy.
He gets some snaps.
Yeah, Luke Farrell.
He puts on a uniform.
Luke Farrell was a hit. They should have kept. They should have kept Jay Tefele, obviously.
John, you do not want Luke Farrell was a hit on your record.
Luke Farrell was a hit for where he was picked.
6th round? I thought they took him in the 5th.
5th round tight end.
Nah.
He's a fine blocker and a better young man. No, he's urban. He comes from a good family. No, I mean, okay, for a 5th round pick, you could do worse than Luke Farrell.
You could do worse. You could pick someone like a new Snoop Connor.
Yeah, they've done worse than Luke Farrell. I think the 2021 class, if you would have just kept Tefele, like it already looks like a home run, but if you kept Tefele, then that class is like GM of the year.
I completely forgot. Totally forgot he was in that class. Do you know if he's done anything for the Bengals? Because I feel like I saw a pretty cool preseason highlight.
He had a stretch.
Nothing sense.
He had a stretch during the regular season where he was, but they had a lot of like injuries at the time, and I think since guys have come back, he's kind of back to being backup. But Jags don't need him. They got the anchor himself, Corey Peters. Corey Peters versus the Titans one of my 5 favorite Jag performances I've seen in the last couple of years. It was absolutely hilarious. It was inspiring.
Yeah, it might have been like the best snap for snap, just like over performance over expectation. Okay, you like that? New stat /bit/ graphic slash. I think he is up there, number one in my performance over expectation metric.
You're the unwell player of the week.
You already gave it to Joey. We're only going to do one.
Speaking of interior guys, though, like guys who like have had to step up since Nolan Smoot went down. I mean, Roy Robertson-Harris. I mean, he's been on an absolute tear lately. You know, I post after game. He's the first guy in a playoff game to ever have 4 tackles for loss, 2 pass breakups, and a sack. And he was the 7th guy to ever do it in any game. And J.J. Watt did it like 3 times. So it's like, if it was something like only J.J. Watt has basically done, then you had like – and it seemed like it was that dominant of a game watching it. Like Roy Robertson-Harris was like absolutely phenomenal, and I feel like it's been that way for the last couple of weeks now.
Every play felt so huge too. Like you could feel the impact on every like quarterback knockdown and every tipped pass. Like they're all felt like on massive plays, and so for like a guy that like I kind of felt like disappeared a little bit in the middle of the season, especially when like the Jags were getting gashed a little bit against the run. He's definitely stepped up big time, and like the offensive tackle situation, it's going to present some questions in the offseason.
Yeah, because I mean, he was a guy that it seemed like people were automatically like, you know, they see his cap hit for next year, and what they say, I mean, me too. You know, every time I've been asked it, but man, if you can bottle whatever has gotten into him these last couple of games and keep it moving forward, like, because I asked Mike Caldwell about it today, and he said that he has stepped up since the Smoot injury. That got me to thinking. It was like, wow, you know, he really like when Smoot was playing, he really wasn't a part of their pass rush package, like at all. Like Robertson-Harris wasn't. You know, he was like a complete afterthought, you know, as a pass rusher. And I know some of his success, you know, like against the Titans, he had a sack that was kind of created by Trayvon Walker forcing, you know, Josh Dobbs to come up. But I mean, we've said it for it feels like years now, especially with Josh Allen, that all the Jaguars need is somebody who can create consistent pressure in the middle. And so many of these like pressures there, because the Jaguars, I want to say, are like top 3 or top 4 in the league in pressures this year and pressure rate, despite being in the bottom like quarter of teams in sacks. All they need is that guy in the middle who can kind of clean up those sacks. And so far, he's been that guy the last couple games. So, yeah, like you said, like tackle, there are some interesting conversations to be had there.
Yeah, Herbert took 3 sacks on the game, and like each one of them, it was definitely like just felt like the pocket collapsed into him from like the outside, but also definitely the interior just going right up to him. And so like he didn't really have anywhere to step up or deliver a throw.
Yeah, my guy Zion Johnson had a rough one.
Yeah, he's had a tough season in general, hasn't he?
He's a rookie.
Up and down.
He's a rookie. He's a rookie guard. He'll be all right. Screw
you. I am interested to see what the Jags do in free agency. I mean, the season's still going on, so it's a longer talk for another time. But like, how many guys they bring back is like huge, because it's like then it would feel like 2017 again, where it's like you're trying to replicate the exact same season. It's like it's cool if you want to like extend guys to like lower cap hits and like, but you gotta do it smart. Don't get caught up too much in like the past 2 Super Bowl weeks for Jacksonville.
No, they should do the 2018 thing again and let the best player walk in free agency and sign Dante Moncrief and Andrew Norwell.
All right, yeah, that'd be a good plan. That works too.
Yeah, that's still the funniest tweet I've seen in Jaguars history is after one game when Moncrief like dropped a pass, and like that's obviously not super specific because there are several of those. Somebody was like. Moncrief is a sacred name in Jacksonville. You need to change your name to like Bayland or something like that. I'm like, fair enough. He's not repping. He's not repping.
Yeah, no, not at all. That's good. The game ended on a Riley Patterson field goal that just eked inside the uprights.
I didn't know how close it was until I saw the video after I was watching like the refs because from the press box, it's such a hard angle to see unless they completely shank it. So I was watching the refs and the crowd reaction. And it wasn't until I got home and I saw a video and I was like, oh, that was so close.
Right. Like it went up and it looked good from like both like our angles and then like the TV broadcast. And then I did the same thing as you from my angle. I looked at the fans and the refs just to watch hands go up. But it went in. thanks to the T formation. Thanks to that great play from 4 whole days ago.
All right. We'll talk real quick before we move on to the Chiefs, the T formation. Gus, go ahead and give your interlude. Whatever you had to give, your ode to the T formation. Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Well, it was created back in 1910 by John F. Football.
Pop Warner, I believe, was his name. No, it was a brilliant play call. Like I said, I think it's the best single play call in Jaguars. You can go, maybe the Tommy Bohannon touchdown, maybe the David Garrard fourth and whatever run against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I mean,
That's huge.
Yeah, but I mean, this just in terms of creativity, because when they called a timeout, I figured that Doug was going to pull out something out there. But I mean, it was the most Andy Reid play. And Doug is full on Andy Reid because it feels like they do one trick play a week, one play a week that's completely out there. And Press Taylor said today that they had an inspiration for a play against the Texans that he got from Twitter. He texted it to Phil Rauscher, and Bo Jackson did it. And they're like, "Hey, this play would be cool." And they ran it with Jamal Agnew, and Press was like, "It did not work." And so Agnew is not Bo Jackson, but I mean, it's the most Andy Reid thing ever for them to just come out with these super weird plays each week. And when they came out on T formation, I was expecting quarterback sneak and everybody was just going to push Trevor. I wasn't expecting an off tackle run at all. And honestly, I will still say I'm kind of surprised they didn't get called for holding.
I on the replay, I was like,
live it looked like you did.
I didn't notice it live, but it was just like you said. It was clearly lining up to pretend to go for a quarterback sneak, and then get ETN outside, and the rest is Jaguars history.
I thought ETN staying in bounds as a young player. I mean, just having that kind of awareness, that was one of the best things he's done all season.
Yeah, I also noticed Jags players hustling to get out of bounds after catching the ball in the third quarter at midfield, and I was like, wow, that's pretty impressive by them or the coaches that told them that or whatever.
They're really good at the small details, which is something that even the 2017 team was not as good at. Sans Alan Hearns crawling off the field.
All right. Who deserves the most flowers in this game, the most recognition, the most credit, in order? Trevor, Doug, Mike Caldwell.
I want to go Mike Caldwell because, I mean, dang, that I'll go Doug because being that, that win is a testament, to their culture and, to his leadership for it to be 27-0 and for them to just not kind of mail it in because – teams do that. I've seen Jaguars teams do that. I've seen Jaguars teams mail it in 10-0, but they could have easily, waved right flag. So I'll go Doug. Trevor, you want to because the second half was so special. But, even if you don't count, 2 of the interceptions, he still threw, 2 terrible interceptions that led to Chargers points. And Mike Caldwell, definitely, deserves to be mentioned. But, like you said, the Chargers, I mean, it felt like their offense, they were playing with a hand tied behind their back without Mike Williams. I mean, it's just imagine being Vince Lombardi's flesh and blood, and you're not good at coaching football. And they just their team, they had nothing. We said when Mike Williams was ruled out, the Jaguars can focus everything on the middle of the field, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for Caldwell, I would say he gets the most recognition just because it's a full game. Because, I think Peterson was doing maybe a little bit of test the waters. We'll see what's happening and then be able to adjust. And that's what he did. And that's what they've been doing throughout the season. But both Trevor, as you said, he's responsible for 2 of the interceptions. The offense didn't play a full 60 minutes. And I was just impressed that the defense did. They let up touchdowns and they let up a few not backbreaking first downs, but rough first downs. So wasn't a perfect game, but it was a pretty dang impressive game from the defense. And so like I was thinking like Mike Caldwell maybe he's in the hot seat after the week one, honestly, and then again at mid-season, just
Yeah.
because of his lack of adjustments. But like he's just been shut down the past couple of weeks.
I mean, both the fact that they've been so good on defense the last couple of weeks and clutch on defense, and the fact that, I mean, you're seeing like staff start to be put together now. I don't think the Jags would put themselves behind the eight ball and be like, okay, we're resetting on defensive staff, after other teams have already been doing it for a week. So I think just the fact that the Jags are still playing is kind of, not I don't want to say save this job because I'm not sure his job was ever in danger, but it's kind of solidified that, they're going to be, ran by the same guy on defense next season.
Right. Well, it also like gave him a chance to quote unquote save his job, I would say, because I mean, as much as like the Chargers were hampered by Lombardi and Williams being out, and then like they played like a clown cast of quarterbacks in the month before that, you gotta give him credit for no touchdowns allowed in the past 5 weeks, I think.
Oh yeah, no,
Pretty
100%.
crazy.
If did the Chargers score 20 points if Trevor doesn't throw any interceptions?
I don't think so. I think they scored like 17.
Yeah,
Like 20 is like the cap, I would say.
I agree with you.
So, yeah. And then Doug after that, I couldn't find it, but Dan Orlovsky had a pretty good quote or tweet after the game. That was basically like, Doug's like I got to know what I'm more impressed with Doug, like the X's and O's, or like the whole culture and locker room and coach aspect of like his overall performance tonight. So, like again, like it was like the sounds of the game was so cool because like you could tell like just from watching the game that the players never wavered, but then to kind of like hear the conversations on the sidelines was super cool. And Trevor was like kind of up and down throughout the game. Like he had some misses like through the fourth quarter. It's not like he was like 16 of 16 like in the second half, but like he had some serious heat checks.
Oh no,
The difference was just like it's getting those like touchdowns, converting touchdowns, and he was able to in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, he absolutely was, and I thought, like such a big thing was, Doug still having them, like we had said, still having them with their heads in the game because there's so many instances where they could have, saw a quarterback throw 4 interceptions and a defender could be like, all right, that's it. Like we're screwed today. But yeah, no, yeah. I definitely thought it was and Mike, I know Doug said after the game that, it was one of, the more impressive wins of his career. I think, after the Super Bowl win, I think it's probably right up there.
Yeah. I mean, I think, did he say top 5 or just top kind of up there?
He just says one of them.
I mean, it's got to be third. When it's the third biggest playoff comeback ever, it's got to be like for anyone on anyone's list. Unless you're Al Michaels. But is there any other notes that you had before we move on?
Al Michaels needs to let it go.
It was so tough because like me and a lot of other people were like excited that he was calling that game. I was like almost like oh man, like too bad I'm going to the game because like it would be cool to listen to Al Michaels. So thank goodness I was wrong about that too.
I've decided to stop taking melatonin at night and instead just listen to Al Michaels calls. Him and Tony Dungy.
Oh,
Tony cat litter Dungy.
Tony didn't help him out at all from the broadcast from what I heard. Like there was just gaps of silences and then like from what I heard on like the last call for the field goal, it seemed like they were like looking at like a graphic or something and like just weren't paying attention. And then Al was like, oh, it's happening now? There must have been a penalty because I wasn't paying attention.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Moving on to the Chiefs game. The Jaguars will play in Kansas City at 4:25 Eastern on Saturday afternoon. And, it's a rematch of their Week 10 game. Chiefs won again in Kansas City 27-17. They got out to a 20-0 lead, I believe. Then the Jags fought back a little bit, but it was one of their 2 or 3 like losses by multiple scores on a season. And after the Chiefs game, the Jags had a bye, and since then they've only lost one game, which was at Detroit. So, John, any takeaways from that Week 10 game, or is it kind of like we were talking about last week, where it was so long ago, it feels like a different season?
Like I do think it's so long ago, it feels like a different season. Like Trevor was obviously just starting to heat up when that game happened. They're playing like a different style of defense and guys in different positions now than they were then. You know, you obviously have a few different starters. Cam Robinson's not there. DeJuan Smoot's not there. So I do think it is kind of a different season. But I also look back to that game and, you know, the Jaguars forced 3 turnovers, but they had 2 missed field goals and a touchdown negated by an offensive lineman down the field on an RPO. I mean, that's a game that it should have been a lot closer than it was. You know, like, yeah, the Jaguars, they went down big, you know, by multiple scores in that game. And it was a game that it shouldn't have mattered, though. Like, they lost that game kind of entirely by their own doing.
Definitely. A lot of, like, kind of like sloppy play, too. We just talked about how the fine details have been shown up for the Jaguars. Like, just bad tackling and, like, Kadarius Toney's biggest NFL game, I feel like. Like Devin Lloyd was like whatever the opposite of teach tape is was like Devin Lloyd's performance, because they were like targeting him the entire game, and that was like the game that Chad Muma came in for Lloyd and Lloyd was benched, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
So that was like the biggest thing that I remember from that game was just how the Chiefs offense kind of like had their way with Lloyd. And so like I think there's been a couple of adjustments by the defense since then of like moving players around and like getting more familiar. The defensive line has been on a different planet the past month, but Devin Lloyd's got to step up on Saturday.
Yeah, no, 100%. And the Chiefs, you know, they're obviously, you know, Travis Kelce is the biggest, like, got to watch. I mean, Gerald Everett just had, you know, 100-something yards and a touchdown against the Jaguars. If Gerald Everett's doing that, then, you know, Travis Kelce has to be the guy. I mean, Titans had a big game against the Jaguars, you know, a week before that with the Titans. You know, I want to say the Jaguars are like the 30th or 31st in DVOA against tight ends this year. Like they've just struggled with tight ends all season, which makes sense when you consider, you know, Fourier isn't exactly a coverage guy, and then they've had a rookie linebacker no matter what next to him. So the biggest thing is, I mean, how do you stop Travis Kelce? And that's harder to do against the Chiefs, not because like they have like some established outside like weapons, like they don't have Tyreek Hill or anything like that. But I mean, just the presence of Reed himself, like he's going to throw more at you than just, you know, Travis Kelce. I mean, he's not Joe Lombardi, who's just, you know, going to be like restricted to throwing to, you know, Keenan Allen basically the whole time. So I don't know what their answer can be for Kelce other than, you know, the rookie's growing up fast.
Right. I mean, I agree with that. Kelce is definitely kind of like the key to the game. He's got to be the number one guy on this target to slow down. But, I mean, one thing that's going to be different also about Week 10 is just the Chiefs receivers on the outside will be healthier and kind of more available, because Juju left in the second half after a big Andre Cisco hit. Miko Hardman didn't play at all. And then it was like one of Kadarius Toney's first games. And so since then, he's just been able to do a little more in the system, even though he did plenty against Jacksonville. So, I mean, they got a lot of weapons. I think one advantage Jacksonville could have in a game is in the run game, just because of how their defensive line has performed and how mediocre Kansas City's running backs are. But at the same time, this will probably also be like the best offensive line the Jaguars have faced in some time.
I'll say this, though. I will say this. Josh Allen versus Orlando Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Outside is like, we're going back and forth between like inside and outside rushes and like, or pressure and its effects. I would definitely say like this has got to be him and like Trayvon Walker game.
Because I mean, like the Chiefs, like their strength is their interior. Like it's like the opposite of the Jaguars' offensive line, right? Like their strength is their interior, whereas the Jaguars' strength is, you know, on the edges. Because I mean, the Chiefs' tackles have struggled all, like Andrew Wiley has struggled all season long.
100%. I mean, Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith at right guard, and then left guard Joe Tooney, like the highest paid guard in the league, or at least one of them. He had signed his contract a couple years ago. But those are like three players you could like argue for a Pro Bowl. So,
I mean, the Chiefs is just such a hard team to really prepare for, just because I mean there's so many like blue chip players everywhere. Like they have the best quarterback in the league, they have the best tight end in the league. They have if we're just talking strictly 2022, Chris Jones is the best interior lineman in the league. Thuney is probably the best guard in the league. Humphrey's up there with the best centers. Like they just have an unbelievably stacked roster.
Yeah, it's good. I would say another difference from Week 10 maybe is McDuffie, their rookie cornerback, has moved into the slot a little bit more. And so, like, Kirk, I would say, has been, like, the offensive MVP of the past two games because Lawrence really just had, like, an unbelievable second half. But Kirk has been, like, I think probably his best two games as a Jaguar in the past two games for, like, the two, like, quote-unquote Super Bowl weeks that it's felt like the past 2 weeks. So, like, him versus the rookies, like, a big one to watch, I'd say.
And I mean, Kirk had a big day against the Chiefs earlier in the season, and he should have had a bigger one. I mean, he dropped a 40-yard pass, and he had like a 100-yard, 2-touchdown day that game anyways.
So, Christian Kirk, Devin Lloyd, Travis Kelce. You got any other matchups?
I mean, Brandon Sheriff and Chris Jones, obviously. I feel like that's
right.
That's like King Kong versus Godzilla. I mean, that's obviously Sheriff hasn't been, guard one like Chris Jones has been like defensive lineman one. But these are the type of games that you sign a guy like Sheriff for. Like these are the games that you hope to really make back on that investment is, games like this because Chris Jones, I mean, he's rare because he's so powerful, but he's also so like athletic and lean. Like he reminds me of like he's like Malik Jackson, like in like some of the ways he wins with speed. But he's like if Malik Jackson had like a power element to his game. Malik Jackson was mostly finesse and stuff. And like Chris Jones, he's kind of built similarly. Super flexible, super explosive, but he can also just like run dudes over. And like we had this discussion last week. Like to me, if you're telling me, like, if I'm an offensive coordinator, would I rather play against an all-world edge or an all-world defensive tackle? I'm going with the all-world edge because I think the defensive tackle can just muck up your offense more.
Yeah, I mean, like, in terms of Week 10 takeaways, I feel like Chris Jones was arguably the best player on the field. He definitely mucked up the Jaguars' offense for a lot of their drives.
I mean, they couldn't run the ball at all that day. I mean, what do you attribute that to? I know the Chiefs, like, they have a weird front seven where they've kind of built like guys like who are primarily run stoppers above all else. But I mean, did the Jaguars just get out physical that game?
I didn't watch it back, so like I don't remember off the top of my head. I feel like it was. I mean, that might have been the case. I'm trying to think if like there was any like injuries, like if that was when Barch went out, and like because like I would assume it was just like Jones would dominate against Shatley.
Barch got hurt in like week 4, I think so, but you were close.
Fortner was still young. I think it was just that, like.
Oh, no, I retract that, I guess. Jags ran 16 times for 75 yards. So, I mean, nothing amazing, but, I mean, their longest run from a running back was 10 yards.
Well, yeah, I think it was just that, like, Fortner and Shatley got out-muscled a little bit.
All right. Well, touche.
We talked a little bit about, like, ways to stop Mahomes or Lawrence last week. Would you say there's like a way to stop Mahomes?
No, I mean just hope that he's kind of off that day, and like he has games like that where he's kind of off and he's either just a tad inaccurate or throws turnovers. But I mean, there's a reason he's the best quarterback. Like he's going to go down in my opinion as the best quarterback of all time. I mean, dude's a like Terminator. Quarterback. He can do anything and everything. And I mentioned this on the radio yesterday in like Kansas City, some station there, like Mike Caldwell, like it's like his entire like scheme and his entire defensive influence, Todd Bowles, Jim Johnson, all that. It's to blitz the quarterback, put pressure on him. But you can't do that against Patrick Mahomes. So it's like, do you be who you are and what kind of got you here? Or do you do what, I'm not going to say works against this guy, but works better than what you do. It's like, cause I feel like they're still going to blitz him. I feel like they're just going to be, they're going to say this is who we are.
Mm-hmm. Their blitz rate has been like crazy the past few weeks. So like I'm wondering if it's like that's who they are, or if like that's like just the quarterbacks that they face, and like against Mahomes if they're gonna drop 8. Because like one of the biggest storylines from last year's playoffs was about how in the Bengals in the AFC Championship they kind of dropped off a bunch of defenders and let Mahomes make mistakes and get impatient. So I'm sure like Mahomes has gotten so much better at that throughout the course of this season as he's about to win MVP for the second time.
Yeah.
So I'd agree with you that he's going to be the GOAT quarterback, and there's no way to stop him. And it'll be interesting to see how the Jaguars go about it.
I mean, the only way to stop him, like you said, is to hope for turnovers and to basically score every time you get the ball. This is a game where the Jaguars are going to need, at least 32 points, I'd say, to have a chance.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of scores, you got a prediction?
I do, but I want you to go first.
Okay. 35-23 Chiefs.
35-23 Chiefs?
Yeah. I think the Chiefs are just like in a different class from the past 5 or 6 teams the Jags have played. And like, I don't know. I'm too nervous about them losing a close game, I think. And I'd be pretty shocked by a win. If they win, like they're going to the Super Bowl, 1,000,000,000%. But I think they're just in a different class. This is like my last see it to believe it game.
38-35 Jaguars. I'll do it. What do I got to lose?
I set you up for it.
Like, I don't have a reputation. What do I have to lose?
You have any like specific takes within that?
I'm
just gonna go off again, or
I feel like this will be a dud game against a secondary that you should be able to throw against, and 2, everybody likes to forget it, like because Mahomes has been to 2 Super Bowls and stuff. But Andy Reid in the playoffs, man, his teams are super weird in the playoffs. And
super weird.
Tell me that I feel a weird Chiefs game coming where they get ahead big, and then the Jaguars, kind of fight back into it, and then they go back and forth until the final drive.
Okay.
And then the Jaguars lose to the Bills next week.
I'm kind of imagining just like the Chiefs, like the same thing as week 10, to be honest. Like the Chiefs get out to an early lead, and then the Jags are like do a little bit of something and show signs of life, but Kansas City will be too much, I think.
Let the record state who's a believer and who's not.
All right. We'll see. Next week, we'll be back with the 30th edition of the Jaguar Report podcast. Any last takes to fire off, John?
Oh, man. 30 episodes. My hot take of the week. My hot take of the week is anybody who has tweeted Brock Purdy Offensive Rookie of the Year unironically should genuinely serve a week of jail time. And I'm not talking county. I want I want federal.
Federal prison.
Yes.
For anyone. The take's been out there for weeks is a scary thing. It's like not just after he won a playoff game with like fake stats. How many games has he even played? 6?
6 or 7, yeah. Something like that. And he's played great. More power to him, but he's played 6 games, damn it.
6 games. Who should it be? There's a correct answer.
For
Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Offensive Rookie of the Year? Olave.
Yeah.
Olave.
Wilson has like way more touchdowns, but I think it's similar, so it's Olave.
Olave, Walker, Wilson.
I would say Olave, Wilson, Walker, but
fair enough.
I don't feel that strongly about it.
Fair enough. I don't feel any way about it. I could not care less about like Trayvon and Devin Lloyd, like just they aren't in the conversation, and then Luke Fortner obviously isn't going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year to at least my knowledge. Have you placed a Gus bet on Luke Fortner odds to win Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Especially not with who's a Raven center, Linderbaum.
Yeah.
If a lineman was going to get votes, it would be him.
I have no idea if he's good or not.
I don't know. He got pancaked. Like I saw one pancake in the Bengals game. So
Dude,
according to my watch the film meter, he's bad.
do
Just
we
on one
think
play.
do we think Tyler Huntley tried that thing because he saw Trevor Lawrence do it?
Tried what?
To like jump over and reach the ball over because he saw Trevor Lawrence do it?
What are you talking about? What did Tyler Chatley do?
Tyler Huntley.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I
Yeah.
was thinking Chatley. Yeah, because like apparently the like design of the sneak was for him to go under and like to get pushed, and
Dude's
so like
like,
I think 100% he was like, oh, that looks cool. I'm gonna do that.
dude's like 6 foot tall.
Hey, he's a respectable 6'1", all right?
Okay, and so are you. All right.
Exactly. You gotta do 6'1", because if it's 6 foot, it's too
Are you
too
6 foot?
sketchy. 6 foot to 6'1".
Okay.
On my official trading card.
Okay. I can probably verify that. Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to think if I have any hot takes.
Come on, you gotta give.
I think it's gonna be they're gonna lose by more than 10. I feel like that's pretty hot.
Give me a hot take on the performance. Who's somebody who performs well or who doesn't perform well? Come on, give me something, guys. Don't leave the people hanging.
Oh man.
I'm not asking you to.
I think we see more Corey Peters snaps. I think Corey Peters. Okay, I'm gonna say. Here's the take.
I ask you for a hot take, and you say we see more Corey Peters.
Let it build. We're gonna see Corey Peters, Shaq Quarterman, and Daniel Thomas all take defensive snaps in this game because that's how bad it's going. So we're out the defense.
Wrap this up. That upset me.
All right. Hopefully this video stream worked. If not, you can
it didn't. It didn't. By the way.
Oh, it did. It did not.
No, it didn't. It didn't.
Oh.
I checked it when we were recording. Yeah, no, it didn't. Nobody could hear me.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Next week, maybe we'll have the stream up and running. Maybe. Yeah. We're getting closer and closer. We're chipping away, John. We're chipping away.
I had family members text me while we were recording, but I didn't know how to break it to you.
You let it ride? All right.
I didn't know how to break it to you.
Maybe next week. Win or lose, we'll be back with episode 30. Thanks for tuning in. That's John. I'm Gus.